Hi, I'm Drea from the Fargo Public Library. Welcome to our first Go and Grow video. Today we'll be covering the basics of houseplant care. The first step is to select the correct kind of pot. Here are three of the most popular type of pots out there. We have a clay pot, a plastic pot, and a glazed ceramic pot. You'll want to make sure that the type of pot you use has a drainage hole. That will allow water to filter out of your pot so that your plant is not too soggy. You'll also need a tray, and here this one comes with a matching tray. You can use a simple plastic tray or even an old plate. Some pots come with a detachable tray right in there. If you're using clay pots are a porous material, and so they will dry out a little bit quicker than your plastic or your ceramic glazed pots. They will also leach moisture through, so if you're using a clay pot and setting it on a wood surface, you may want to seal the bottom of your pot so that it doesn't stain your surface. If you are using an old pot that you've used before, you'll want to make sure to clean this out really well, and then give it a bath of a 10% bleach solution to kill any pathogens that may harm your houseplant. The next step is to select the correct potting mix for your plant. You don't want to use just regular dirt from your backyard. It is far too compact and full of clay. It does not drain very well. Your houseplant won't like it. You'll want to get a store-bought potting mix. This stuff is nice and fluffy, full of air pockets that will hold water and air, two elements needed for your houseplant. And it will also be well draining. So it holds moisture, but not too much. It's kind of like a perfect medium. What is it made out of? It actually has no dirt in it at all. It is made of peat moss, sphagnum moss, bark, compost, perlite, vermiculite, and fertilizer. Now, peat moss is a finite resource. It's not very environmentally friendly. Peat moss comes from peat bogs that they take 25 years to produce 1 inch of new product. So you'll see more soils going to a coir. This is a coconut coir, and it's essentially a byproduct from the coconut industry. It is ground up coconut husks. It's nice and fluffy, and it holds moisture really well. The little white dots that you see in the potting mix is going to be either vermiculite or perlite. Perlite is a volcanic glass, and vermiculite is a mineral that is mined. It is fluffy, it adds fluffiness and drainage to your potting mix. You'll also want to make sure that you are selecting the appropriate type of mix for the plant that you are planting. There are some specialty mixes, such as cactus or succulent mix. Cactuses and succulents need to dry out a little bit more quickly than your regular houseplant. So the mix here is made of little less moss, more perlite, and added sand. Now it's time to plant. Here I have a dwarf umbrella tree, a Schefflera arbicola. It is ready to go into a new pot. You usually want to pick a pot that is 2 to 4 inches in diameter, larger than the pot that you are starting with. However, this plant is so top heavy that I want to anchor it down a little bit better. So I'm going to go to a larger pot. Now it's best to transplant your pot when your plant is a little bit on the dry side, and that's just because it's easier to handle. When I pop it out of its original pot, I can see that the plant is root bound. The roots are growing in a spiral shape around the pot. We want to discourage the plant to continue growing in this direction because it may cause your plant to fail to thrive. So what I'm going to do is trim the edges around. I'm going to square it off on 4 sides. This will allow the roots to kind of be fluffed up. And you'll want to do that on all 4 sides. And you can kind of fluff up your roots as you go, encouraging your plant to have its roots grow out in different directions. Next, I'm going to take my pot and I'm going to add my potting mix. This is just a standard potting mix. And I'm going to add soil in here, a few scoops just to kind of get a base started. So I've gotten about that far. And I'm going to set my plant right inside. Then I'll continue adding soil along the sides, making sure that it's covered all the way around and I don't have any spots that aren't filled with soil. And I'm going to bring this soil line all the way up to kind of, there's an indentation on my pot on the inside, and I'm using that as a guide. We want to keep the last inch, half an inch to an inch of the top where the soil line does not meet the rim of the pot, so that we have room for water. Now we're going to cover watering. Watering is sometimes the trickiest part to houseplants and the part that people struggle with the most. First of all, our plants are usually tropical plants. They like warmer temperatures, and the water that comes out of our tap on the cold tap can be as low as 50 degrees. So we'll want to elevate that temperature a little bit. You can get the correct temperature, which is around 60 to 80 degrees, one of two ways. Firstly, you could just let your water sit out to acclimate to room temperature. Or when you're running your water in your tap, you could use a meat thermometer to make sure that you're getting the correct temperature. I have an aquarium at home, so I like to use aquarium water that's already at a nice temperature when I remove it from the tank of about 78 degrees. My plants love it because it is a natural fertilizer as well, full of good nitrogen. Our city water also contains chlorine and salts, which can be harmful for your plants. Some plants are a little more sensitive than others, such as dracaenas and spider plants. You may see some brown tips at the end of their leaves, which may be a sign from using hard city water. Other ways to get around this is you could use snow melt or rainwater. Next, I will demonstrate proper watering. Here we have a plant, and the roots in this plant actually go quite down a ways in this pot. And one of the common mistakes is that when people water, they water just the top, and they think that that is sufficient. And I can see the water trickling down here, but it's not going very far. So what I do when I water my plants is I bring them to my kitchen sink. I take the plant from its tray into the kitchen sink. I'm going to use my aquarium water. And I pour and pour and pour. Maybe a little bit and let that seep down. And I want to pour until I see water coming out of the bottom. It can take a few seconds of watering. It's starting to drip pretty good now. And then what I will do is let it sit in my kitchen sink for a little bit to kind of drain before returning it to its tray. Some plants love added humidity, and in the wintertime our houses can be really quite dry. So how do you increase the humidity for some plants? There's two really easy ways. When I water my plants at the kitchen sink, I might use the kitchen sprayer and spray down those leaves to get them nice and damp. Or you can get a mister and mist the leaves. Another great way to increase humidity is with a humidity tray. Here I have a plastic tray filled with marbles. You could use stones too. And I fill that tray with water and set the plant on top. As the water evaporates from the tray, It will increase the humidity around the leaves of the plant. Thank you for joining us for this Go and Grow video. If you want more information, you can come check out a book. We have an excellent collection. To find out how, go to the catalog at fargolibrary.org.